all bones in my heart and everything that I have in my body, because not only I worked for the U.S. military for almost a decade as a translator and a cultural advisor, and of course at various capacities to include the U.S. Marines and the Special Forces, but I started working for the U.S. military out of an impetus for democracy, for women's rights, for freedom, for just all those good things that any human being deserves living anywhere on the planet. That was my hope when I started working for the U.S. military. That's how I got attached to why I'm here today. And today I find myself struggling to evacuate people who actually worked for the same cause as I did. And there are thousands and tens of thousands of them that are literally left behind, that can't be at the airport at the moment, as we know, due to the explosion that happened a couple hours ago. So I'm attached to this with my whole life.
And you're originally from Afghanistan?
Yes, I'm originally from Afghanistan, born in Kabul, had to migrate during the Civil War to Pakistan and a number of course, other places just to seek a safe place. This is, of course, the decision my parents made back then. After the Taliban collapsed in 2001, there was a glimmer of hope for the Afghans to return back to their country, and that's what pretty much my father decided to do. Back in beginning 2002, we went back to Afghanistan, continued doing all we could do, and as soon as I was 18, just witnessing what's happening around me and what would be a good thing to, or a better way to serve the country and the mission there. For me, I thought it was best to go in and join the U.S. military. Of course, there was a convincing salary, but that was not the ultimate cause that I started working for the U.S. military back then, the U.S. Marines, in 2005.
I know this is a difficult question to answer, but how are you holding up knowing about these explosions that happened just hours ago?
It breaks my heart. It really does. I have been working with a great number of folks who are working day and night trying to evacuate as many of the people who are vulnerable as possible, and just knowing that literally hours ago before that, I had family members there, literally at the very same spot. We are coordinating, as I speak right now, a number of efforts, and it just seems washed out by the explosion, but we had literally people there that we were trying to evacuate. I still don't know how some are doing. I've lost communication, unfortunately. I'm hoping they're okay. I haven't, but there are a lot of people who have lost their lives, a lot who have injured, including the U.S. military. Our personnel are on the ground risking their lives, like literally risking their lives, trying to evacuate not only American citizens who are trapped there, and I believe we have a good number of U.S. citizens who are stuck in the chaos there and can't find a way to get to the airport. I'm personally in contact with a good number of folks whose family members are here in the U.S., but have the rest of their family members stuck there. And it's also the Afghan allies who actually helped us with the mission Enduring Freedom in Afghanistan, working in different capacities, not, of course, the translators and people who worked as cultural advisors, as IT admins, I don't know, you just name it, people who worked as regular contractors. Guess what? The U.S. is pulling out, and I'm afraid it's not even the 31st now. I'm afraid it's going to end before that. And I'm very fearful to say that I think it's going to happen. We're leaving tens of thousands of people behind. I don't buy the numbers that I get from the White House. I know we are getting a very convincing number, close to 100,000 being evacuated right now. I've always questioned, where are we getting these numbers from? Are we counting Russian citizens that we are evacuating under the evacuation mission that we have? If we're including, per se, the Russian citizens that I'm aware of that were evacuated yesterday, and other nationals, which is not a bad thing to do, don't take me wrong, but are we really prioritizing our allies? I fear, and I'm afraid to say that we will have tens of thousands of them left, because they either don't have a passport to get to the airport and to proceed their paperwork. Some even don't need the passport to get in, but it really depends on your luck, who you're facing with when you get to the airport. And I have an example of it from overnight. But there are so many people who are trapped there for various reasons, and I work with a great number of veterans and my former military colleagues and other volunteers from across the country to try to help get as many people on the base in the airport as possible. Just passing through that gate seems literally impossible for people who have valid paperwork. And as I was saying, just the tens and hundreds of volunteers, the veterans who are helping to accomplish this. I have examples for cases where I was directly involved, and a number of other former military personnel, my dear colleagues that I love a lot, were involved in this. I hate to say it, we failed to even pass a number of people through the gate. We failed to make the bureaucratic process any easier. It's just becoming a headache. You get email alerts from the embassy saying go to the airport. Hours later, an hour later, moments later, you get another email to stand by, go back home. So it's just all the chaos that thousands of people are dealing with, including our own US citizens there, and of course our allies. And I do understand that there are a good number of people who are just wanting to get out of Afghanistan. Can't blame them. When you're living under a brutal regime like the Taliban, having experienced them from the 1996 to 2001, just having known that they won't allow women to work freely, to go to school, as they have literally done right now. They have asked women to stay home until further notice. I can't imagine just living in a society like that. Who wants to live there? But the bottom line is we need to get our allies out. We need to get people who have worked with the US military, have supported the US military in one way or another. We need to get them out as soon as possible. And again, I'm afraid that we will have a very good number of them left behind. I do have to get this call. I apologize. Hey, Anthony. Hi, brother. Thank you.
Some slightly good news?
So that's what we have been trying. The guy I was speaking with was one of my first bosses in 2005, one of the first Marines that I actually got to work with. He was a captain back then, and amidst all the chaos, I haven't really asked him what his rank is right now or what his affiliation. We just talk about the challenge that we are having of getting people out. So the gates are closed. It's shameful that we have charter flights. A few of them, the intel we have literally like flown back to Qatar and other places, not full. That means we're not able to get as many people in as we should be. So that's a shame. But again, the number of folks that I'm coordinating with, not only this contact that I just spoke with, but with a good number of other folks, they have their names on the manifest for a flight. They have had their names on a manifest for a flight for 3 days, at least in one circumstance, more than 3 days. They're not able to get through the gates. It's either too crowded to get through the crowd, or at times, even when you get to the gate, there are so many other situations that you run into and you're thrown back. Or you're like literally right at the gate to get in and the explosion happens. Just imagine about the hopes being lost that people had there. There were so many people on the verge of like literally saying a change come to their life. Not necessarily right that hour, but they were hopeful about their future. What happened? They gave up. A lot of people have given up hope, given up faith, not only in the international community, but unfortunately in the US government. I believe it's a betrayal. Leaving anyone who have helped our military behind is a betrayal, is a shame, and will be recorded as the shameful thing in the history that we will remember for a long time, despite having the biggest evacuation operation in our history. This is all the chaos that's happening. I'm also afraid, like I was saying, that we are going to pull out before the 31st. I have been reaching out to everyone and anyone, my military contacts, people I know through anywhere, my congressional representatives. I've been begging them to come up with the strategies that can evacuate these people faster and more effectively and build pressure on the White House to do that. It just doesn't seem like anything is changing right now. I'm afraid we're going to leave so many people behind.
I know that the president was getting briefed throughout the day today. Still no word on whether or not he'll come out and speak, but based on what we had talked about earlier was you were able to get your wife and children out last week. How, and I know thankful is probably not the right word to use given there are other family members still over there, but how happy are you to have them safe over here right now?
I'm very grateful. It's still a very stressful time, but having my wife and kids, 4 kids, stuck in Afghanistan when I was trying to get them rescheduled even before the collapse happened. I was not successful because we couldn't find any flights. So I am grateful I cannot mention all the names of the people who actually helped my wife and kids get out. There are so many good people, but one person that of course stands on the top of the list is Senator Warner. I was in touch with his chief of staff. He was personally involved in this, and we were able to get him on one of the very first flights out of Kabul. But they still had to go through the chaos. My kids passed out a number of times, the 2 little ones, just trying to make it through the crowd. It's very, very chaotic right now, but it was not any easy to get through the crowd. Even back then, I believe it was last Monday, 10 days ago or so. So I feel good that I see my especially youngest son who's at home right now. The others are at school, running around and just giving me the feeling that if I have to de-stress, I can just go and look at them. But they're not the only ones who were trapped there. They were lucky that they were able to get out, but we have thousands and tens of thousands of more who are trapped there that we need to find a way to get them out. Most of them don't even have passports because they either applied for Afghan passports and the regime changed and their paperwork is just vanished, it's gone, or they never thought about applying for a passport because nobody expected a transition like this. Nobody expected a turnover like this within days and overnight. So I feel great that my kids are here, but I feel very helpless and hopeless that there are thousands and tens of thousands of people who are going to be left behind, and the millions of people who are going to have to deal with the Taliban regime that they never want to accept, but they have no other choice. And on a bigger political level, of course there are people to blame for this. I believe there could have been a better planning. There could have been a better time to evacuate and wisely evacuate. I do not agree with how the president has moved, despite being one of his supporters for a long time, but I totally disagree with him, and I'm not happy with how he has managed the evacuation from Afghanistan and just the withdrawal overall with the timeline and everything, and mainly in a way empowering the Taliban the way they are right now. I believe the Taliban will listen to the US because they're seeking international recognition right now. So President Biden, I think, needs to be a little more tough on the Taliban at time being and not give up and pretty much surrender to the Taliban. We need to get everyone out. The Taliban will listen to the President of the United States of America because we're a powerful country and we can make that happen. But if he makes that decision, if the Congress makes that decision, I think we can get everyone safe. If we give up, we're having tens of thousands of people just leaving at open execution and brutality that even the local media will not be courageous enough to report for the fear of their lives. Brutalities are happening right now as I speak, just based on personal intel and reports that I have from folks on the ground. House-to-house searches have begun. People are executed because they had some sort of an affiliation with the U.S. military in specifically, but also some other key posts in the Afghan government. So that retaliation has already started. The Taliban leadership are saying that they have an amnesty for everyone. Do you think a group like the Taliban will listen, or their fighters will listen to their leadership if they have the opportunity to execute someone that have been fighting them for years and 20 years? We have cases right now, and I don't think that the tens of thousands of people will have a safe place to go. It's heartbreaking, but the president can do something. He needs to be very firm and believe in the power that we have, and believe the power that this country has. We can pressure Taliban. We can pressure Taliban not only to securely evacuate these people, but we can pressure Taliban in the future to respect women's rights, which I doubt that a group like the Taliban would ever want to do that, because in their core basis they don't believe in women's rights and all the other basic human rights that a human being deserves to have.
You want to take that?
I apologize.
No, you are fine.
The other contacts who helped, who hasn't, like, we haven't been sleeping for nights and days. The person that just called me is a great human being. He is working literally around the clock. We were up all night last night. We were up all night the night before. We were able to get one person through the gate, one of my former colleagues who worked as a translator. Super grateful that we were able to get him through. And it was, of course, the individual I spoke with who really helped that person get across the finish line, at least getting him on the plane. So we have a great number of people who are working very hard day and night, trying to go around the red tape and the lengthy bureaucratic process that's held thousands and tens of thousands of SIV applicants stuck in Afghanistan. I think if we had started processing these cases a lot faster a year or 2 years ago, we would have not been here. We have cases where people have waited 4 years, 5 years, 3 years. They shouldn't have waited. And now we are at a jam lock, and everybody is just stuck there. And we don't know what's a good way out. With all the risks and the threats that we are getting from ISIS, I think the Taliban and ISIS are one, just for the record. They're all one. I call them all one terrorist groups. I know it's going to put I don't care about my life anymore, but the lives of my family members in Afghanistan at risk. But they're all one group. There's a very popular saying in Afghanistan that the donkey is the same donkey, but the cloth goes on top of it is a different cloth. So it's the same person with a different banner. It's just a shame that we are having to deal with this, and my heart goes to the poor people of Afghanistan, people who have been suffering for over 4 decades, people who really want peace, people who care about humanity and human rights, but are not allowed to practice what they want to practice, but are not allowed to live the way they want to live. So many factors that are just preventing them from being a simple human being, the rights that a human being should have. And it's not just the Afghan people. It's not the fault is not from the Afghan people. It's bigger political games that are being played against the Afghan people. Whether it's the U.S., whether it's the Pakistani ISI in the military, whether it's the Russians or the Chinese or other big political powers and big atomic powers in the region, it's just a mess there. If we went to fight Al-Qaeda in Afghanistan, where did we find Osama bin Laden? Pakistan. Where was the Taliban leadership? Pakistan. I can get into this and go on and on for hours, but I'll not touch more on that right now. I think the priority is to get as many people out of Afghanistan as possible who have worked for the U.S. military, who have valid documentation. I think we need to get them out. We need to find a way to get them out safely, because there are tens of thousands, at least hundreds that we are aware of right now.
Yeah. Are you hoping that this August 31st deadline goes beyond that? Do you hope that U.S. troops will continue to get as many of these folks who have those documents, even if it is after August 31st? Because that's something that's really being discussed right now, whether or not we'll go beyond that deadline.
I think we should definitely go beyond that deadline, but going beyond that deadline wouldn't make any difference if we continued the way we are processing cases right now. I think we need to come up with a new strategy. I think we need to operate more effectively on who we are getting out and how we are getting out, because the word is we're literally, the first few flights, we're literally grabbing random people and allowing them into the airport and flying them into DC and other places. I think we need to be vetting these people. I think we need to be letting the right people in. So definitely extend that 31st deadline, August 31st deadline, and definitely come up with a more effective way to get these people in as fast as possible, or out, when I say in the airport and out of Afghanistan, as fast as possible and as effectively as possible. I'm just going to have to say that I'm afraid we will not be there until the 31st. I think we will be out before that. I'm afraid that news is going to break very soon.
Because obviously today's explosions do change some security measures and likely change security measures. And then just thinking about how an hour ago the Pentagon press secretary came out saying a number of U.S. servicemen members had died as a result of those explosions. You serving with U.S. service members before, how does that make you feel?
Hey, we were toe-to-toe fighting with the Taliban and the terrorists day and night. The Marine military contact that just called me, him and I had been in so many battlefields, like toe-to-toe fighting, even back then when I was an 18 and 19-year-old. But we fought them. We fought every single minute of our life. We stood shoulder to shoulder. And I know how it feels to lose a service member. I know how it feels to lose a human being, but particularly one that goes thousands of miles away to rescue people who have helped our mission. It's heartbreaking. My heart goes to their families, keeping them in our thoughts. They are not alone. Unfortunately, the people of Afghanistan have been suffering, losing family members. I've lost family members. Have so many children that I know personally who are without parents, without a father mainly. So I know how it feels if you're losing a loved one. And if you are, my heart goes with you, and we share the same feeling. It's heartbreaking to lose a human being for whatever reason, especially those who are there to rescue more lives. And I believe it's going to change how we operate, like the Pentagon has said. The gates are already closed. And even before, when the gates were not closed, they were not moving as effectively as possible. But again, my heart goes out to service members who have been affected and have lost their dear lives.
Can you think of anything else that you want to say that we didn't cover?
I just want to point out how hopeless people in Kabul city are, in Afghanistan all over, but Kabul city having the main airport where people are rushing to, the city has changed. The hope is not there anymore. Life doesn't mean the same as it meant 2 weeks ago. Even back then there were explosions and robbery and like theft everywhere. Maybe there are not as many explosions right now under the Taliban regime because they were the ones doing it. And even I suspect that the one at the airport, they did it today. Let them not claim it, or let ISIS-K or whatever they want to claim it. But the city has changed. The hopes have died. People don't have a reason to live under the Taliban regime. I speak with tens of people every day who are reaching out to me, asking me to find a way out for them. I won't be able to help each and every one of them, but it shows how desperate people are to get out of a country you were born in. Can you imagine leaving your home, family, and everything you have behind? I have examples of people who have literally just left their homes with a backpack and have left everything to anyone. It's a hard feeling. I want the world to remember the people of Afghanistan, but I also want to thank our service members for putting their lives at the very front line, trying to evacuate the number of people that we should be evacuating. And I really want the politicians, the president, Congress, to act immediately and quickly and make sure that we get each and every Afghan who have helped supported the mission Enduring Freedom in Afghanistan And of course, we cannot leave our U.S. citizens behind. I'm in contact with some. They're still there, like literally there right now.